Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be ranking UFC lightweights on a tier list. I'm doing lightweights because, obviously, we had Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier last weekend, so I decided maybe it's a good time to do a UFC lightweight tier list. We have maybe 24 here, so or a little bit less than that, but let's just jump right into it. Don't forget to subscribe. Help me get to 1,000 followers. Or 1,000 subscribers, that is. I'm like 600 away. So let's get right into it. Let's start off with Arman Tsarukyan. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Arman Tsarukyan just got a big win over Charles Oliveira at UFC 300. Should be fighting for the lightweight championship very soon against Islam Makhachev. I'm going to put Arman Tsarukyan in A tier, man. He's really, really good. I think his striking improved a lot. He's continuing to improve, and that makes him so good. Brutally knocked out Beneil Dariush. Beneil is not as good as everybody is saying, and is not as good as I thought personally going into that Charles Oliveira fight. Beneil, as low-key, fell off the face of the earth, but it's still a good win. He knocked him out in the first round. His striking is improving, and his grappling is really, really good. He has a nice wrestling base. He can get the fight to the ground. He has a submission game, and I think he could give problems to Islam Makhachev. I do think Islam is still going to win that fight, but Arman could give him problems. Arman gave him one of the toughest fights of his career. However, I do think Islam probably finds a submission in that fight, but Arman's still really good. He is a top 3 lightweight in the world, absolutely, in my opinion, so I think he is a perfect fit in A tier. Next up, Renato Moicano. Okay, this is pretty interesting. I'm going to put Moicano in C tier. Now, I might change some things around towards the end of the video, but for now, I'm going to put Moicano in C tier. He has a few decent wins. He hasn't beaten anybody too high level. His best win is over Jalen Turner, but let's be fucking real. Jalen Turner, you choked the fuck out of that fight. Jalen Turner should have absolutely won. He didn't. So that's probably Renato Moicano's biggest win of his career, but when he's fought the best of the best, he's lost. He's fought the Korean Zombie. He's fought Brian Ortega. He's fought Jose Aldo, and he loses. But he's still pretty decent. His striking is all right. Not the best striking defense, but his grappling game is pretty good. He has a decent submission game, so I'll throw him in that C tier. Maybe move him up, maybe move him down. We got to see. Next up, Dan Hooker. Okay. Dan Hooker, yeah, I'm going to throw him in C tier as well. I do think he's probably a little bit better than Renato Moicano, a little bit more battle-tested. He's a decent striker. He's actually a pretty decent striker. Pretty good striker. He has power in the feet. He's pretty tight with his combinations. Has a sneaky grappling game. He went to absolute war with Dustin Poirier. That's one of the craziest fights I've ever seen. I think Dan Hooker is a pretty decent C tier. I'm not going to make this video too long, 10-15 minutes. I don't want to drag it out too long, but Dan Hooker is pretty underrated. He got that big win over Jalen Turner last year's International Fight Week. Yeah, he's pretty decent. Decent striker, as I said. He has, power on the feet. He has a decent finishing ability. And as I said, sneaky submission game. So I think he's a decent C tier. Next up, Jalen Turner. I'm going to put him at the top of C tier. I know Renato Moicano beat him, but Jalen Turner is the better fighter. Jalen Turner is absolutely the better fighter. I think he should maybe go up in weight class. I think he's a massive lightweight, and maybe that weight cut is getting to him. But he should be better than he is, man. He should be better than he is, especially in the lightweight division because he is so big. His reach advantage is so much bigger than most of the guys he's going to fight. And he's pretty well-rounded. He's very dangerous on the feet. His ability to, mix in punches, kicks, and knees is really, really solid. But he just doesn't have, it, I guess. He doesn't have it, which propels him to that top tier of the lightweights when realistically he should. He's just not getting the results because he has a decent wrestling game. He could rely on the wrestling game if he wants to. He has a sneaky submission game like Dan Hooker, and he's super dangerous on the feet. He has really good length. He has a ton of power. He can mix in the knees and the kicks as well, as I said. But there's just something that's just not there. I don't know if it's the IQ. I'm just not sure. Like realistically, Jalen Turner at this point in his career should be pushing for, maybe a top 5 place in the lightweight division, but he's just not there. And it's kind of sad to see because I like Jalen Turner a lot, and he has the skill set. The skill set is there, but I don't know how to explain it. It's just not producing results. So for now, he'll go C tier, but I think he could absolutely be in the B tier later in his career. Next up, Benoit Saint Denis. I'm going to put Benoit in the B tier. I think it's pretty solid. I think this tier list, is going to be damn near perfect because it's my list. It's going to be really good. Benoit Saint Denis is going to go to the B tier. I like Benoit Saint Denis a lot. He has a lot of potential, and right now he still is really good. You look at that Dustin Poirier fight. We don't know how it plays out if he doesn't have staph infection because, people look back at that fight and, it's a Dustin Poirier KO, but Benoit Saint Denis was getting this man to the ground. He was getting him in bad positions with that staph infection. So I think he's definitely better than the guys in C tier. He's pretty well-rounded. He kind of does everything. I think the weakest point in his game is that striking defense because offensively, he can mix in the kicks. He has a bunch of power, but his striking defense isn't all that great, and Dustin Poirier kind of exposed him, especially in the pocket. His striking defense isn't great, but he has a threat on the feet, which is really, really good. He has a ton of power, and a lot of a lot of the guys in this tier list already, he has a sneaky submission game. I know people, recognize his submission game, but it's pretty damn good. He gets the fight to the ground. He could submit you. He can knock you out. He's very well-rounded. I know he's not, identical to Jalen Turner, but they kind of remind me of the same fighter, even though they're pretty different, if that makes sense. But Benoit Saint Denis, I feel like, puts it together a little bit better than Jalen Turner, Renato Moicano, and Dan Hooker. So for now, I'm going to put him in B tier. Next up, Bobby Green. Yeah, I'm going to put him in C tier, the end of C tier. I think Bobby Green's low-key pretty underrated. I'm not going to lie, Bobby Green's low-key underrated because his boxing's actually really good. His 1-2's solid. He beat the crap out of Jim Turner. Holy fuck. Jim Miller at UFC 300. I'm gonna repeat this for like the 5th time. He has a sneaky submission game. He could get the fight to the ground if he absolutely needs to. Dangerous on the feet. Certified veteran. Crafty veteran. Has a really nice 1-2. He's dangerous on the feet. He has a chin on him. He could take a shot. Unlike that Jalen Turner fight. But Bobby Green's pretty underrated. I know he's very old, but he could put, the 1-2 together. He could even submit you if he really, really wanted to. So for now, Jalen Turner, Bobby Green is good at the back of C tier. Next up, Charles Oliveira, my favorite fighter of all time. He's going to go to A tier. He's going to go to A tier. Definitely a step above. I got to clear my throat. God damn. Definitely a step above Benoit Saint Denis. I think he's definitely on that level of Arman Tsarukyan. I think he actually is better than Arman Tsarukyan. I know the rankings inside the tier don't matter too much, but why not? Why not? Let's rank them in how I think they are. I still do think Charles Oliveira is better than Arman Tsarukyan. He's still so damn good. I know he lost at UFC 300, but I just don't think he put on a good performance. I know he's better than that. I know he's better than that. I don't think it's a point where he's like, okay, maybe he's falling off. I know Charles Oliveira is better than that. He was too comfortable off of his back. If it was a 5-round fight, I think he finishes Arman Tsarukyan. I think Arman kind of leaves himself open to some submissions. I know it's against the best jiu-jitsu practitioner in the world, but he still is. He still has a little bit of issues in terms of jiu-jitsu defense, I feel like, Arman Tsarukyan. But we're talking about Charles Oliveira. Super dangerous on the feet. He's gotten better as his career gone on. His head kicks have improved. That's one point I want to drive home. His head kicks especially has improved. His tie clinch on the feet is super dangerous. The knees up the middle are really good. The 1-2 is solid. The pressure he puts on you on the feet is unlike anybody else in the UFC, really. So dangerous on the feet. And then when he gets you on the ground and when he gets you in bad positions, it's pretty much over. I know recently he hasn't been able to finish guys as much on the ground. He still does it, but like He's not finishing you as soon as he gets you in one position, if that makes sense. But defensively sound off of his back. If he's not rocked, he is so good off of his back. He can throw up submissions. His ground and pound and top game, I think, is pretty underrated. You could look at that Dustin Poirier performance. The best jiu-jitsu practitioner of all time in the UFC. He could throw up any submission he wants to. His wrestling game is pretty decent. And as I said, on the feet, he is so damn dangerous. Charles Oliveira, definitely in the A tier. Justin Gaethje. Ooh, I don't know where to put Justin Gaethje. I do think he's going to beat, or I think he would beat Benoit Saint-Denis, but I'm going to put him at the top of B tier, close to A tier. I just don't think he's on the level of Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan, but he's still good. He's still really good. Doesn't really have a ground game. The grappling, not really there. His wrestling sucks, but on the feet, he's super dangerous. I know he got exposed against Max Holloway, and that's probably my best prediction of all time. I had Max Holloway KOing Justin Gaethje, and that was one of the best KOs of all time, if not the best. But he's still really good on the feet. Some of the best leg kicks in the UFC. He's gotten better as his career has gone on. A lot more composed on the feet. Dangerous in the pocket. He has a ton of power. As I said, the leg kicks are so damn good. Some of the best in the UFC. So powerful. It's like a whip. He hits you with like a whip. His boxing is decent. Yeah, there's not really much to talk about when you're talking about Justin Gaethje. We know what he's about. He's dangerous on the feet. He packs a ton of power, and he puts on good fucking fights. Nothing else, really. Next up, Dustin Poirier. Okay. Dustin. I know he lost to Justin Gaethje, but I'm going to put him in... I got to put him in B tier. He's not on the level of Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira, but he is higher than Justin Gaethje, I think, and that Islam Makhachev performance was really good. I do think Islam outboxed him, outboxed him in the pocket too, which is just insane to say when you're talking about Dustin Poirier, but it was still a really good performance from Dustin, and I don't want him to retire because I think he could put on fun fights, but I understand if he is going to retire. He's given us so many great moments, but getting back to that Islam performance, it was really good, man. He was really good. He was defensively sound on the feet. Islam put him in a ton of bad positions, especially with that body lock on multiple occasions. He was really, really defensively sound. His defensive grappling and wrestling was really good. He was able to stay on the feet, and it was probably the best title performance of his life against arguably the best fighter he's faced in title fights. So I think Dustin Poirier is still really solid. We know what he's about. He has a little bit of submission game. I know he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but let's not compare him to a guy like Charles Oliveira. He's got a decent submission game. Not the best wrestler in the world, but in terms of boxing, one of the best in the UFC. Can't really kick anymore. He doesn't really have a hip, but in the pocket, super dangerous, super tight with his combinations, has a ton of power, and I think Dustin Poirier is perfect in that top level of B tier. Next up, Mateusz Gamrot. I'm actually going to put him above Dustin Poirier. Mateusz Gamrot is weird, man. He's like a jiu-jitsu sorcerer with all this black magic and all the superpowers this dude has because he gets flukes, man. He gets flukes. I don't know what he does to his opponents, but he gets flukes. But at the same time, Gamrot is really good. I think people forget that in that Fiziev fight, his striking looked really good. I know it didn't last long, but he outstruck Fiziev for however long the fight lasted, and that's a super promising, thing to look at moving forward for Gamrot. I don't know why he doesn't have a fight booked. Maybe he does, and I'm just dumb, but he should be fighting more. The striking is improving, and I think in terms of timing takedowns and getting the fight to the ground, he might have the best timed takedowns in the lightweight division, and I don't think that's a horrible thing to say at all. I think he does have the best timed takedowns in the UFC. His ability to level change is really, really good, and when he gets you on the ground, he holds you there, man. I think Mateusz Gamrot, I know he has black magic, and I know he's very, very weird in terms of that, but he is still very good. I think he fits in perfectly in that B tier. However, I don't think he's as good as Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan. Michael Chandler. I'm going to put him at the back of at B tier. I think he is pretty underrated, but I do think he's going to get sniped by Conor McGregor. When you watch Michael Chandler, the way he enters the pocket, I mean, Conor has to be winning this fight. But I do think Michael Chandler's decent. Excuse me, goddamn. I think if his fight IQ was a little bit better and he wasn't just putting on entertaining performances for the fans, I think... Holy shit, I'm like burping. What the fuck? But if he wasn't so focused on putting on like incredible fights for the fans, I feel like he could have done better because he doesn't use his wrestling game enough when he should. He's super dangerous on the feet. He puts on a pressure. He puts on good pressure. I don't think his striking defense is that good, but he's still a decent fighter. He should be using his ground game a lot more. But at the end of the day, he wants to put on good fights for the fans, and I can't knock him for that. So I think he's a solid B-tier fighter. Next up, Beneil Dariush. I'm going to fit him in maybe here. I feel like before that Charles Oliveira performance, the dude somehow had aura. He somehow had aura. But low-key, it kind of made sense. I picked him to beat Charles Oliveira. I don't know how. Because, I think it was the right hand was super dangerous. He kind of just hucks it out there. It's super powerful. He was very nonchalant on the feet, but it worked for him. That performance over Gamrot was crazy, even though I think Gamrot's the better fighter. And I think he's improved a ton since then. His grappling is really good. I still think it's pretty decent, but I don't know. Is it just him fighting Charles and Arman? Is he still actually pretty decent? I don't know. I want to put him in B tier. I'm going to put him in B tier. Oh, shit. My camera's about to die. You know what? We can't do this for very much longer. I apologize, guys. Fiziev is going to go to the back of B tier. Really decent striker. Doesn't have too much of the ground game. And then Islam is going to go to S tier. You could argue he's the best MMA grappler and striker in the world. That's the tier list. I like that. I don't think that's that bad. Maybe Beneil goes here. Maybe Fiziev goes here. But no, I'm going to keep Fiziev here. I'll put Fiziev right there. That's the tier list. I like that. I was going to put Max Holloway in, but I still count him as a featherweight. But if I'm going to count him, S tier. Definitely below Islam, but he's that good. This is the complete tier list. Let me know what you guys think. Click the subscribe button.